Hi, welcome to my shop, James Barber's in Harrogate in North Yorkshire. I have a very special guest with me today, Mr. Mitchell Orchant. Mitch and I go back a long, long way. We were the first, basically, in the UK to go online back in 96, 97. So we go back a long way. I think it was a few years before we met. Initially we were competitors, now we've become very good friends. Mitchell's helped me out in the past with stock and vice versa. And it's great to have Mitchell here in Harrogate for the first time.
It's good to be in Harrogate, but we're not just contemporaries in business. You're my supplier as well, because you've been supplying me with bits and pieces from your range of accessories, your amazing range of accessories for as long as I can remember.
Yes. Well, we started Ceromi 20 years ago, or just over 20 years ago.
I remember when you started, because I think you were with Mike Davis in the Atlantic bar, and I had the little cigar bar there. Do you remember in Piccadilly?
Right. Yeah.
That's 20 years ago. Wow. Yeah. That's gone fast. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, well, of course, we were the young ones in the trade there, and now we're the oldest.
We're the old boys now, you, me and Peter Lloyd. Well, and Edward Sakian, obviously. We're definitely the oldest experienced cigar specialist in the country now. But you're also very famous for your pipe business, because you made it huge in the pipe business online some years ago.
Yes, well, we specialise in Dunhill pipe. Well, we still do, but we sell, well over 1,000 pipes a year.
Whoa, amazing.
Yeah, now obviously it's much more cigars than pipes. I'm not saying that the pipe business is going down, but prices are increasing, and now we've got this fantastic second cigar boom that we're experiencing.
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible since COVID, really and truly. That was the big booster, I think.
Oh, it really was a turning point. I mean, between us, we've seen so many changes in the trade. The initial boom back in the, was it late 80s, Cigar Aficionado?
Yeah, or early 90s, can't remember now, I'm so old. Yeah. Memory's gone.
Yeah, I mean, Cigar Aficionado did so much for the trade. And, we had that boom then, and then we saw sales drop slightly. But now we're seeing a huge increase in sales again.
Of New World and Cubans?
New World and Cubans, but I'd say predominantly Cuban. What we find here, the old boys still buy the Cubans by the box, but the young guys that come into store, they want to experiment more, and we see them buying more singles. They want more of a variety, and probably buying more New World.
We see exactly the same, that younger generations mixing it up, maybe taking a couple of Cubans and then a whole variety of New World cigars. Mm-hmm. It's good. Variety is the spice of life, I think. So it's good that people are changing it up and experiencing different brands and regions and flavours.
Yeah, it's nice, when customers come, you give them that full experience, We've trained our staff, they've been to cigar school and to several events. And, we don't want customers just come in and buy cigars. You want to make it an experience, sit them down, talk them through it, teaching them how to cut a cigar, how to light it, how to put a cigar out, which is very important.
Yeah.
And it's just lovely. It's a lovely trade to be in. I can't think of another trade as friendly and where competitors all get on so well with each other.
But it's become a nicer trade over the years. I don't think it was that friendly when I started, which was about late 93 and then full-time from 97. You were always very nice to me. Peter Lloyd was very nice to me. Nobody else spoke to me. Now I think just about everybody is friends in our cigar trade. It's become a much friendlier trade, as I think the old boys, a lot of them went out the business, and new people have come into the business, particularly recently. A lot of new guys have come in the trade who are really good guys, real cigar enthusiasts. They've got a lot of passion for the business. And I think that's good for everyone. It's grown the trade, and it makes the UK retain its status as the mecca for the cigar trade, certainly the Havana cigar trade.
I mean, in the early days, of course, we've got a lot of the old boys in the trade who were very particular about who could have what and who could be supplied.
Exactly.
And, would kick off if somebody came in the vicinity of their shop to open another shop,
Well, yeah, that's why hunters didn't want to supply me, because everyone was complaining, he's selling on the internet, he's selling by mail order. But I wasn't the first guy selling by mail order. No. Mail order's been around for, I don't know, probably best part of 200 years in the UK.
Yeah, and it's important because, not every town has got a tobacconist like it used to do.
Well, that's right.
And, we're not Spain where every town does have a tobacco shop,
I think in the 60s and 70s, just about every major town or city had 2 or 3 specialist tobacconists in the UK. which is fascinating when you think about it.
In Otley, where we started, so my great-grandfather started in 1867.
Wow.
But there were 5 specialist tobacconists in Otley. But my great-grandfather had the advantage that he had his own tobacco plantations in the US, and he had a factory out the back of the shop. So he was supplying most of the shops in the area as well.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, he would travel by horse and carriage all the way up to Scotland selling his tobacco that he manufactured.
Oh, amazing.
He did manufacture cigars, but predominantly twist tobacco.
Okay. Twist tobacco is in for pipes?
Yeah. So that was spun with olive oil, the kind of stuff that Gowers make today. You know?
Yeah, but it's not the same today. So isn't it pre-packed, the twists?
No, you still
they still do proper
yeah,
twists.
Yeah,
so you can do it in a jar and cut it and whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love it. I don't know anything about pipe tobacco. You're the specialist in that department. I don't know anything about pipes either, although we sell quite a few these days. But I do love the aroma of a nice pipe tobacco.
Oh, yeah.
But it never smokes. It never tastes quite the same as the aroma, does it?
No.
Was it better in terms of the aroma and the flavour of pipe tobacco before they changed, with the additives that you couldn't have the oil-based tobaccos? Because a lot of people complain about that.
Yeah, I think they were slightly better a few years ago before the regulations came in.
Bloody regulations.
I mean, the most famous one that we saw was the American Black Cherry, which is very, very popular.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's funny though, people say to me, that they're anti-smoking, but they love the smell of cigars or a pipe.
I get that a lot.
Yeah.
Or I like it when people say to me, what do you do for a living? And I say, I'm a cigar specialist. And they say, people still smoke cigars? I'm like, well, I hope so. I've got about 100,000 people on my database. Not all of them smoke every day, but yeah, there's a lot of people smoking cigars still in this country.
And are you finding a lot more younger people now starting smoking cigars?
Yeah.
When I say younger, I'm talking mid-20s upwards, and you might get the odd 18-year-old, but most of them can't really afford.
Our growing and our main demographic now is probably 25 to 35. So it's definitely become a younger person's habit, hobby, pastime. There's a lot more people in that younger demographic, which is great. When I started, in the mid-90s, I reckon the average age of my client would have been about 60. And they're all dead now, which is terrible. That's how long I've been in the business. Well, they're not all dead.
But in those days, it would be 99% Cuban, I would guess.
Absolutely. 99% Cuban, the odd Latin Victor, the odd Don Tomas, and the odd Santa Damiana. Crazy. And then it really changed, in the last 10 years, would you say?
I would say so.
Yeah. I was an early adopter of New World cigars. I was always interested in giving people a choice. But they really got their act together in packaging and blending and marketing, definitely in the last decade, which it's been great. It's been I think a breath of fresh air into the industry, actually. Yeah. And it hasn't been to the detriment of our Cuban cigar sales. No. I think it's just grown the market. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And obviously the quality's it's advanced so much over the last 10 years on the New World. And there's some fantastic cigars out there.
Well, we're doing the selection cigars tonight by Mirafel, and we've got a lovely box of La Estancia here, which I glanced at and thought was a Behique box. I was like, what's going on? It was very, very beautiful. So that's going to be an interesting tasting, which you've done an incredible job selling loads and loads of tickets to. So it should be a nice crowd tonight.
I'm looking forward to trying that and seeing everybody. I think we'll have about 80 people coming to tonight's event.
Amazing. That's going to be very cool. And when did you redo your lovely shop? Because it's the first time I've been to Harrogate, and it is
about 6 months ago. We relocated to Harrogate from Otley 6 years ago, and we had this area here as a gift shop. And as nice as it was, we weren't selling many gifts, and the cigar sales were just increasing all the time. So we decided to get rid of all the gifts. We imported these humidors and redecorated. So it's been open about 3 to 4 months, I think now.
Lovely. It's very, very nice. I started online at the end of 1993, so very, very early. And of course, I didn't come from a retail background in the cigar business, although I was selling cigars through big hunters cabinets in my petrol stations, in my convenience stores. So I had regular clients, but I wasn't a cigar specialist by any stretch of the imagination. Although I had done cigar school and Simon had signed my certificate probably back in, I think, 1994. So I was fairly early into it. But you actually came from a more retail specialist background. So it was maybe more of a shift for you to look at online and have a website and think about selling online, as opposed to me. I came from that different sort of angle.
Yeah, well, I went online in 94, 95, and it was quite an accident. I was just, my shop used to be a local tea stop for the local constabulary.
Yeah.
And so one day this policeman came in, poor buyer, and I was asking him what is email and what is a website. I'd never heard of it. And apparently he'd been online for like 7 years. He was a bit of a geek at home. So he invited me down to his house to have a look. And he said, I think the only search engine then was Alta Vista.
Oh my God.
And he said, right, now we'll type into here what you want to look at. So we put Cigars into there, and it took ages. It was a dial-up modem, and it took ages for these results to come down. And I think I only found 4 stores, and they're all in America,
Yeah.
on the search engine. So I asked Paul if he could build me a website. So he rang me up the next day. He said, right, you've got to buy Microsoft front page. It'll cost you £100, and I'll have a go. So he started up the website. Nothing happened for 3 months. And then suddenly I was inundated with requests. Sadly, most of them from America wanting Cuban cigars,
Obviously.
which we couldn't send. But eventually we started getting the odd one from the UK. And obviously with so few cigar shops around, we just built our first walk-in humidor. And there were so few cigar shops around, so people were quite impressed to see this walk-in humidor online. And one of the important things was, we had to select the best cigars for people because they were not there to look at them and pick them up. You couldn't afford to send them something with a pale wrapper or like a watermark burn on it or something like that. We would have to pick the best for those people. If somebody wants to pick one with a pale wrapper or something in the shop, that's up to them. But we had to look after those online customers. It was, you had to build up trust with the customer. You wanted them to come back.
It was a difficult process for us back then, because you literally had to try and educate the consumer who was used to touching, feeling, sniffing the product and having a conversation in store. It's a seismic shift to get them to order online and have that same level of trust that you're going to pick, a dark leaf or a light leaf or whatever, or it's going to be in the right condition, and they're actually going to get it through the post. Although, like I said, there have been mail order cigar companies around for years and years, for centuries, in fact. But I think that was the difficult thing, to get the trust in that sort of time era for people to order. Well, they weren't ordering online; they were ordering over email back in those days, weren't they? Because we didn't. I don't think both of us had, or either of us had, online ordering probably till, I'm trying to think, it would have been maybe the late 1990s or even early 2000s before.
We didn't even have shopping carts then.
That's what I'm talking
We
about.
had an order form.
Yeah, that's
with
right.
a very unsecure credit card page
Oh
as
my
well.
God.
Yeah?
Yes, times have changed. Bloody hell. Yeah. But I mean, people did shift. It was quite a fast shift if you think of that time era to ordering online. Obviously, because they tried it the once. We used to say to people, order one cigar, try it. If you're not happy, we'll give you the money back. If you are happy, carry on ordering. And of course, a load of people actually did that and then ended up ordering box after box, and then they'd become your regular client. You must have gone through a similar kind of thing. Once they started, it was easy, it was convenient, especially if they didn't want to go to a cigar store because it was a 60-mile trek or something.
I have to say, in the early days, it was mainly full box sales though, rather than singles.
Us as well.
We do a few singles, but it was mainly by the box. It was incredible the amount we're shifting, because a lot of people, I think, were having to travel to London to find, decent cigars. And suddenly they
more convenient.
Yeah, so much more convenient.
I recognised back then, I think it was about 98, that there were virtually no cigar stores in Scotland, and the ones that were there were crap. They were real rubbish. So I started advertising in every Scottish edition of the national newspapers. I did big half-page ads, page ads, and I ended up, to this day, I've got the most massive database in Scotland, purely because the industry was so underrepresented there, and that you'd have to travel hundreds of miles to find a cigar store, and then they probably had no stock. So we ended up with tons of clients in Scotland, which was probably quite innovative of me back in the day. It worked very well. But yeah, it was all box business back then. If you could get the boxes, because of course, late 90s, couldn't get any Robustos, couldn't get any Pyramidas. It was all terribly allocated stock from hunters. Yeah. I remember crying to them, give me some Monty 2s. You know, I'm smoking them myself. I'm trying to sell them. Can't get any Monty. All right, we'll give you 2 boxes. What use is 2 boxes? You want like a master case? Crazy.
Yeah, you know, they didn't distribute the cigars well from Cuba in those days. So I remember we had unlimited amounts of double Coronas. But as you say, no Monte Cristo number 2, no Bermudez. But yet Spain was full of Monte Cristo number 2.
Yeah.
And they'd got no double Coronas, you know.
It's still a bit like that today. Whenever I go on a Caribbean cruise, I stop at all the La Casa del Habano shops and have a chat with the managers or the owners. And sometimes you see like they've got book collection, they've got Bahique, you know, they've got rare humidors. And I'm saying, well, how come you've got all this stuff? Oh, we've had that for years, doesn't sell. Like, I could sell it in 2 seconds in the UK. And they're like, well, we need this and we haven't got that and you've got it. Crazy.
I think sometimes the shortages do help us though, because it distributes the trade round a bit more. You know, if they can't get them from you, they'll shop around and
yeah, for sure.
And vice versa. You know, if we haven't got the stock they want, and somebody else has got it, so
we
it adds
see
a bit
that,
of fun to it.
We see that in St James's a lot because, of course, our neighbours are JJ Fox and Davidoff, and we'll see the same customers. They literally go from shop to shop picking up their box of Siglo 6 because every shop has only got one at a time or whatever. So it's actually pretty good for all of our businesses. But I dare say they go around the country as well. In fact, we see a lot of the same customers from Edinburgh to Liverpool to London, which is kind of cool. But hey, you know, they want their cigars. If it's allocated stocks, they've got to go all over to find it. Yeah. It's not a bad thing.
Was it about 2009 when you started doing the cigar auctions?
Yeah, took over from Christie's back in the day.
Yeah. Well, I sold a few pieces through Christie's, and I thought that was the end of it then. Then you came up with the cigar auctions, which was a great move and great for the trade as well.
Thank you.
And it creates such an interest. And, you know, now I get the odd person coming in here offering me vintage cigars. What do I pay for them? I can go look at your auction site, see past prices and everything. And it's very interesting. And I now have started investing in cigars.
Very sensible.
Particularly limited editions, you know, I put a few Cabildos away recently. But you're guaranteed 10% plus, just with manufacturers' increases, the budget increases, and you can't go wrong. And, you know, if you hit it right, like a few years ago with the Cohiba Talisman, which I didn't put any away, you know, we're selling them at £695 a box, they're now going for £3,000 a box.
Crazy.
So I've encouraged a few customers now to invest in cigars, and I think it's the way forward, you know, not just to enjoy them, but just as a great investment. I'd rather have cigars than a Rolex watch.
Or, well, you're right, they've gone down in value. Or buy one, smoke one, you know, stash one and smoke the other. And a lot of my clients have done that, and they end up selling one box, and that's financed the box they've smoked, so they're smoking for nothing.
You must find it very interesting looking at the pieces that come in though. And
I love it. I'm just the curator of the collection. I just absolutely love it because there's always something that comes in that I thought I'd never see in my lifetime. And I've literally seen just about everything. So it is fascinating for me. But I'm not a collector, I'm a trader. So I'm just looking after the collection and moving it on and hopefully to another home.
You must have a few personal pieces that you put away.
I actually don't. I've really never been a collector. My father's got a small collection of some very interesting stuff from the 60s and 70s. But I've never been a collector. I could never afford to, because when we were building the business, we had to trade. We had to buy, make our margin, trade, move on. And as of course, we were always trying to build the business and build this estate of stores across the UK. Inevitably, I was always short of cash. And I remember one crazy story when we bought Liverpool, the big store there that we're in now. We really were out of money to do the development, and I think I sold 200 boxes of Cohiba 1966 at some humongous profit. Like at the time, it was only £1,000 a box, but I mean that was a big margin, and that paid for the whole bloody development. So yeah, it can be a most lucrative investment, like your talisman example.
Yeah. So about 30 years ago, one of the Dunhill family rang me up and said, "We're totally overstocked in our humidor. Would you be interested in buying some? We'll give you 20% off trade on them." And so I bought all these cigars, and really the only ones that were fetching money then, decent money, were pre-Castro cigars.
Yeah.
And these were mainly 1960s, mid-60s, late 60s. I bought £60,000 worth.
Wow, that's a fortune.
And I had to sell a lot off in the trade. Sold quite a few to Mike Davis. That's when I first met Mike, cigar connoisseur. but you know, I sold them at normal price. Today they would be worth a small fortune.
Absolutely.
Probably talking £1,000,000 with the cigars there.
That is just scary. That is scary. I can probably match that with my Cohiba Bihike 40th anniversary humidor story, where I bought and sold, including the one with my name on it, I think 21 out of the 100 that were made. And I mean, the prices I was selling them for were ridiculous. My one went for, I think, 20,000 or 18,000, something like that. I don't know what they trade for today, but I think the last one we sold a couple of years ago went for £250,000. So, I mean, you can see the values on some of this stuff if you pick the right stuff and look after it. It's just the increase in values is astronomical.
Wow.
Crazy stuff, no? The good part of the story is, out of those 21 that I sold originally, I think I've resold about 6 or 7 of them once, twice. One I've even resold 3 times. One never left our humidor, just kept moving to different client lockers. Ridiculous. So almost as good as your Dunhill story.
Wow.
That's a holy grail cigar, all those Dunhills. They're fewer and far between. Incredible.
So we're on our way to Cuba on Sunday to the Habanos Festival.
Excellent.
And of course, it's the 15th anniversary of the PEK, so will be interesting to see if there are any available. But...
Well, they'll hopefully be available for the gala dinner. Whether they'll get released to the trade anytime thereafter, let's hope. We can only hope. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Mitchell, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to come up to Harrogate and visiting us here. It makes change for me coming down to London. It's been great to have you here, and I hope you enjoy Yorkshire. So we're now on our way to a joint event between James Barber and C.Gars at the West Park Hotel, where we'll be smoking this lovely selection cigar here by Mirafel. And our guest will be meeting Melissa Mirafel over at the West Park.
Yep.
So here's to a great evening.
I'm sure it's going to be a great evening, and it's been an absolute pleasure to come, and thanks for the warm welcome. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. Melissa's great fun. She's going to be interesting, and she'll tell us about the brand. So yeah, hope to do many more events together around the country, wherever, London, Liverpool, Havana, who knows.
Thank you, Mitchell.
Thank you, James.
Let's go to the event then.
Let's do it.